This is Story Recapped. Today, I'm going to explain a drama and sci-fi show called Electric Dreams, Safe and Sound. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. Irene Lee and her daughter, Foster, cross the bridge to the eastern city but find Border Patrol blocking their path. Foster tries to tell her mother that it's just a routine check, but Irene quickly confronts the agents, showing them their permit to cross. She tosses the permit at an agent, giving them a reason to apprehend her. Irene argues that she's an elected official by citizens who choose to live free instead of being regulated. They aim to stop the constant surveillance on the bubbles, but the agents argue that those conspiracy theories have been debunked already. Still, Irene asserts that she and her daughter have a one-year pass to enter the eastern city. Because of this, the agents are forced to release Irene and wish Foster good luck with her mother. Arriving at their apartment, Irene comments on the screen that shows water drops, saying that fake nature offsets the brutalism. Still, Foster looks out her bedroom window and marvels at the city view, though her mother promises that they'll beat the city. The next day, Irene takes Foster to school and calls the other students sheep for being dressed in brightly colored clothes. She tells her daughter that her group is fighting such mindless conformity, but Foster just thinks the people like the clothes. Foster then hurries to school, but the alarm blares when she passes through the security check. A guard asks where her dex is, pointing out the bracelets the other students are wearing to enter the campus. Foster doesn't have one, so she has to go through the alternative entrance where guards scan them. After being scanned, a guard puts a red armband on her, telling her to keep it on and visible. Upon entering, Foster hears a video presentation reminding everyone about the bombings and shootings outside. Fortunately, the school is a certified semi-safe zone. As she walks to her class, Foster sees students using their decks as holographic computers. The video presentation adds that they have everything they need in one perfect device, from tracking their past, protecting their present, and preparing for their future. However, the idyllic campus is ruined when another student with a red band gets bullied and called a terrorist. Before the bullies approach Foster, another red band student, Milena, comes up beside her to scare the boys away. After they leave, Milena advises Foster to never flinch as they're not dexed, so whatever the bullies do to them won't be recorded. In her first class, Foster introduces herself and shows her classmates her hometown, a bubble called Orange Morning. One of the students, Kave, comments that she's cute for a terrorist, making the others laugh. The teacher scolds him that not everyone from the West is a terrorist, but he argues that most of them are. He adds that he only goes to school so he doesn't get attacked by bubble people, but Foster argues that those claims are all propaganda. Kave just thinks she's brainwashed. When the teacher mentions that Foster isn't dexed yet, another student named Kim complains that they don't know if it's safe to be around her. The lesson begins and everyone's dex allows them to answer their activity, but Foster can only do so in her notebook. Kave then turns to her and offers to help her get dexed. When Foster mentions that her mother won't let her, he hints that she doesn't have to know. That night, Foster asks her mother for a dex and defends that the device connects to her studies. Irene scoffs at this and refuses to let her surrender her freedom, but Foster insists that it's for security. Irene argues that there's a difference between safety and truth. She believes that all the reported attacks are fake, so she refuses to buy her daughter a dex. With no other choice, Foster asks Kave for help in getting her dex the next day. In just a few minutes, Kave hacks into Irene's account to order a dex for Foster, which will download her information and be delivered via drone. Curiously, Foster asks if Kave has ever witnessed an attack, and he confirms that he always sees them on his newsfeed. She asks if he's seen one in real life, but Kave starts kissing her. When she pulls away, she clarifies that she just needed help. Kave is confused that she didn't expect to give something in return, so he leaves. Soon, the drone arrives to deliver Foster's dex. At home, Foster secretly puts on her dex wristbands and applies the hair gel to her ear. Immediately, the AI powers on, and Foster confirms that she can hear it before checking the other features. She tries to turn off an app but struggles to, so a customer support agent quickly contacts her. He teaches her to close her palm to close her app using a holographic image of his hand. Throughout the evening, he shows her other hand gestures to command the dex, which Foster learns quickly. He assures her that she's learning faster than most, so she might be meant to live in the East after all. Foster comments that he's nice, and she asks for his name, but it's against company policy to share that information. With that, they say a pleasant goodbye, and Foster smiles at her first good interaction in the city. The next day, Foster takes the deck's entrance, catching Kim and Milena's attention. Foster is tasked to spot the terrorist in a bombing attack simulation. She notices a man wearing a pin from a neighbor bubble, only to see the man using the pin to bomb the area. The presentation continues on how Simi Corporation has developed technology such as suspicion scanners, temperature gauges, and dexes so they can identify suspects before they become threats. However, the presentation implies that not all attackers are aware of their roles. Showing a child with a supposed bomber, the presentation implies that some are mind-controlled. This makes Foster uncomfortable. After class, Kim approaches her and advises her to fix her problem with Kaveh. Kaveh has been spreading rumors that Foster led him on and shut him down after she got what she wanted. Kim points out that everyone will know that Foster stole the decks from her mother's account, so she should sleep with Kaveh to keep him quiet. She assures her that Kaveh is on steroids, so it's safe to have some fun with him. With that in mind, Foster awkwardly approaches Kaveh, but he turns her down in front of his friends. Frustrated, Foster goes to the bathroom but struggles to open the faucets. Suddenly, the customer support agent contacts her since her vitals spiked. Finding someone to talk to, she admits that she feels like the city hates her. The agent notices that she talked to Kaveh recently, so he asks if her dilemma is about him. Foster admits that Kaveh humiliated her, so to help her out, the agent offers to look up dirt on Kaveh so she can get even. The agent accidentally mentions that his name is Ethan before ending the call and even turns the faucet on for her. Suddenly, a news report comes up about another attack. At home, Foster finds her mother arguing with SEMI representative Odin via a video call. Irene claims that the attack was orchestrated exactly when a Bubbles representative got a seat on the committee. Foster hides in her bedroom when Ethan calls her. He claims that Kaveh started removing his decks at school for exactly 15 minutes each day. Every time Kaveh goes offline, 13 other kids from different schools do it at the same time. He can't tell what Kaveh is doing during these times, so Ethan asks Foster to find out. The following day, Kaveh heads into a room at the campus, not knowing that Foster is following him. Ethan confirms that Kaveh just went offline, so Foster checks the door Kaveh went into but finds it locked. Instead, she waits by the stairs nearby. Another student overhears her talking to Ethan but assumes that Foster was talking to herself since she didn't hear the agent. Ethan explains to Foster that she got the latest Dex model as the company is still testing the hair gel. Foster recalls that her father used to talk to himself, so she gets nervous. Suddenly, the locked doors open, but instead of Kaveh, Milena steps out. Ethan tells Foster to follow her, insisting that something is happening. As Foster follows the girl into a gated building, Ethan instructs her to get Milena to talk to her so he can profile her voice. Milena finds her and asks why she's following her. Foster claims that it's because she seems different, adding that she doesn't have any friends. Milena leads Foster into an abandoned school library, which Foster marvels at. However, Ethan instructs her to ask about Kaveh, so she does. Foster mentions that she saw Kaveh enter the room where she came from, so Milena admits that she sleeps with Kaveh so he'd leave her alone. Ethan demands that she presses for more information, but Foster gets scared. Milena notices blood on her hand, and Foster realizes that she cut her hand while opening the gate earlier. Seeing her have a panic attack, Milena helps calm her down and makes her some tea. She shares that she was born in another bubble called Light Lily, but she moved to the city with her father when she was 9. Her mother, however, stayed in the bubble. Foster drinks the tea and finds comfort in Milena's company when Ethan suddenly yells for her to stop drinking. He commands her to get to the bathroom, so Foster runs. In the bathroom, he tells her to throw up since Milena might have drugged her. Foster does as she's told, and Ethan tells her that Milena's father, Carter, is a massive anti-corporate activist. He claims that Carter disappeared after orchestrating a bombing 20 years ago. Ethan tells her not to trust anyone, not even her mother, as she might have moved into the city to connect with Carter. Foster refuses to believe this, but suddenly, Irene comes knocking on the bathroom door with Milena. Ethan tells Foster to act normal when he does more digging to find out what's happening. He ends the call, leaving Foster panicking alone. Later, while in her mother's car, Foster questions how Milena found Irene. Irene shrugs it off as nothing is private in their school anymore. Irene brings up Foster's breakdown in the bathroom, but her daughter claims it was a misunderstanding. Still, Irene is worried, given what happened to Foster's father. Hearing this, Foster snaps at her mother but accidentally activates the dex. She hurriedly tries turning it off, but Irene already figures out that she stole her credits and blames the dex for her daughter's behavior. Irene asserts that since she used her credits to buy a government-linked tracking device, the council she works with will find out, and it'll undermine what they crossed over for. She commands her daughter to take it off, so Foster does, and Irene throws it out on the road. The next day at school, an alarm suddenly blares, alerting them of an attack. As metal shields cover the windows, the students hurry out. The teacher tells Foster that without her dex, she can't enter the safe rooms. Therefore, security will restrain her until the alert is over. With her hair gel still intact, Ethan contacts Foster and orders her to head outside the building. However, the doors are locked, so he tells her to go where there's sunlight. Foster crouches by a window with sunlight and cries in fear. He explains that she needs sunlight to power the hair gel so they can continue talking, but she needs to get to the park. Simi has activated all security drills in every school, so the terrorists would think they don't know which school they're targeting. Ethan claims that the terrorist plans to attack her school and she's supposed to trigger it. Suddenly, a guard opens the door without noticing Foster, so she quickly slips out of the building. As she lays down hidden in the park, Ethan claims another student was killed in a bombing in his apartment this morning, and there were traces of homemade explosives. The student had also just received this text recently, like Foster. They looked into his psych profiles from when he was a kid to one taken last month and saw that his profiles were completely different. Foster decides she needs a doctor as she's talking to someone in her head. However, Ethan adds that she already took 2 psych profiles, one when her father died and the second 2 weeks ago. Her profile as a 6-year-old marked her as strong and confident, but now she's changed completely. Still, Foster insists she needs to talk to someone with a face to ensure this isn't just happening in her head. Suddenly, Ethan yells at her to grow up. He knows her father heard voices and lost his mind before he killed himself, but Ethan insists that this is different. He asserts that people will die unless she listens, so Foster frightfully says that she will listen now. Calmly, he tells her that radical Western activists are trying to destroy the Eastern society values by targeting their safe zones. He claims that the activists are now using their own children to unwittingly commit the acts since it's easier for them to cross the border. Foster insists that this isn't the case for her, but Ethan stresses that she initially felt that the city hates her. If he hadn't contacted her, Irene would have let her hate the city enough to lash out. All they need to do is introduce a chemical agent to trigger her, which is what Milena mixed into the tea. He claims that they can't just simply close the schools to stop this because the radicals will just change tactics. Instead, they intend to let Foster perform the attack as her mother intended, but Ethan will keep watch of her and stop her before she can hurt anyone. Foster points out that she doesn't have her dex anymore, but he assures her that Irene will give it back. Getting her trust, Ethan instructs her to take her notebook to write down their plan. That evening, Irene serves cupcakes for Foster and apologizes for her behavior. However, she insists that having the dex would have her trading her independence for the security she doesn't need. Irene points out the supposed terrorist attack at the border must have just been a person with the letter opener in their bag, but the news over-sensationalized it. She adds that people like her who call out the city's lies are hated because they can destroy their monopoly on reality. She insists that independence and free thought are worth fighting for, so Irene decides that she can't force her ideals on her daughter. With this in mind, Irene returns the dex to her daughter, which reminds Foster of how Ethan predicted that Irene would give it back. Afraid, Foster tells her mother that she'll try a day without it again. This makes Irene happy. Later that evening, Foster creates a homemade bomb and places it in her bag. Early the next morning, Foster drives to school alone. Milena tries to greet her on the way to the school entrance, but Foster runs to the dex entrance, which immediately triggers since she's not wearing her dex. Milena checks in on her, but Foster suddenly headbutts her. A guard grabs Foster and she screams for Ethan to help, but he doesn't contact her. Instead, as the guards apprehend her and throw her bag away, Foster sees lights in the sky, thanking her. 2 months later, Odin addresses the media, claiming that the attack on the school was perpetrated by Irene. He claims that Irene mentally harmed her daughter until Foster carried out what would have been the bombing. Because of this incident, new policies have been made. First, Semicorp will implement their security systems throughout the country. Secondly, student tracking and security policies will now become mandatory. After the announcements, Odin introduces the newly reformed Foster. As the new face of Simi Corporation, she reads a teleprompter to declare herself as a previously unwilling cog to the attacks plotted by her own mother. Now that every student will have their own dex, Foster assures the public that she and all their children will be safe. Though the teleprompter ends her speech, Foster continues that people need someone to trust, even if they can't see their faces. She's pulled away from the stage by Odin's assistant before she can say further. Months ago, Odin's assistant, Ethan, detected that Foster purchased her dex, thus beginning their plot. Ethan pretended to be a customer support agent to manipulate her into trusting him. As Foster sunk into anxiety, Odin directed Ethan to convince her to suspect Milena and her mother. Thus, Foster became an unwitting pawn for Semicorp to mandate their devices as a safety feature for all.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.